Okay, just to recap the Illinois game. I was proud of our guys again that we were able to go on the road and again against a good football team and find a way to pull out the victory. I thought there were some real positives in there. Obviously, I thought our offensive line had one of their better performances that I can remember in quite some time. Bishop Sankey was tremendous. You go back and you watch the film and just some of the runs he had, and then his ability to have an effect in the passing game and not just catching the ball, but in protection. I thought he was tremendous as well. I really, I didn't notice sometimes during the game, and you just see the stats. I thought Josh Shirley had an impact rushing the passer. I thought that a lot of our guys up front made it uncomfortable for a kid coming into the game, was completing 75% of his passes for 400-something yards a game. To hold him to, I think it was 9 of 25 for 150 yards, and 75 of those came on one play that we all wish we could have back. So I thought that was a real positive. The beauty of it for us was coming out of it, there's plenty to work on, and that's the great part about being in a season and having a team and learning to progress and get better from week in and week out. Myself included, obviously, the red zone efficiency is not where we want to be and need to be. So we'll continue to work on that. Some of the penalty issues that, I think we can really clean up this week, which we started on today. And then minimizing the big play. We did such a good job in the Boise game of, facing 88 plays and only giving up 2 explosive plays. Contrastly, this week against Illinois, we only faced, I think it was 62 plays, but they had 10 explosive plays in the game. So our ability to keep the ball in front of us and make teams work to drive it down the field will be important. But all in all, I thought it was a solid performance for our team, but still with areas for plenty of improvement.
Can you talk maybe more in depth about the red zone challenges and just kind of what's keeping you guys from?
Yeah, obviously we had 4 trips this ball game in the red zone, and we scored 2 touchdowns and settled for 2 field goals. The first trip down, we had hit Kaysen on a deep ball there, and I think it was Kaysen or Kevin, I can't remember exactly, but we got the ball down there, and it was a play. The 3 plays really that we called were really trying to go to our primary red zone targets, and I give credit to Illinois, and they coach too, and they have good players too. They did a nice job of trying to defend our red zone targets, and obviously it's pretty safe to say Kaysen and Austin are good red zone weapons for us, and they did a good job of pushing coverage their way and forcing the ball to go to different places, as they did in other trips down where we end up throwing the ball to Jadon, and Jadon broke the tackle for a touchdown as well there. So that first trip was that way. The second one, it was an interesting trip into the red zone because we knew how important the 3 points were late in the game to make it a 2-score game. And on the third down play, we thought we had a good play for Kaysen dialed up. Keith obviously knew how important the field goal was there as well, and came off of Kaysen maybe a little bit too quick. I think he'd like to have it back and check the ball down to Jesse, and we got the 3 points to make it a 10-point game. So, I'm not overly I'm not hitting the panic button about us in the red zone. I think we have plenty of good weapons. I think we have good schemes. It's just finding the right rhythm of the game of when we're calling, what we're calling, and making sure that the timing is there and in the right place with the receivers and the quarterback, and then how the running game ties into that. And, I felt a little bit like, we were just a tiny bit off, and it was funny. Kaysen came up to me today and he goes, gosh, I wish I could have ran a couple of these routes a little bit better here or there. So it's being early in the season. It's not quite being exactly on the same page yet, and myself, the quarterback, everybody there. So we need to work through it, and we need to, it'll be a point of emphasis for us this week in practice, because we can't continually, go into a ball game and come out going 2 for 4 with touchdowns when you have a chance to score 28 points, and you only walk away with 20 when you're in the red zone. That's disappointing, and so The part of the positive is we haven't had any turnovers in the red zone, which was something that was a point of emphasis for ours coming into the season. We had turned the ball over so much in the red zone last year that I thought had a really negative effect on not just that drive, but on the overall flow of the game. So we're taking care of the football better. Now we need to make sure we're still aggressive in scoring touchdowns and not settling for field goals. So there's a real gray area there and a fine line of a balancing act of being able to do both of those two things. And it starts with the play calls to the quarterback and everybody else involved.
Talk about what Jesse did out there and how you look at that now going forward.
That was awesome. Yeah, I was really happy for Jesse. It's funny, I had a chance to reflect about it on the flight home. You think about a guy who was going into last season as our starting tailback. First drive of the season against San Diego State in the red zone. He's about to score a touchdown, makes a cut, and tears his ACL. And it's a year later, he finds his way back, gets thrown in the action probably a little bit more than he was anticipating, and two huge plays. I mean, the touchdown run he has on 3rd and 7, we don't block the defensive end. He absolutely makes the defensive end miss. Then he makes the safety miss at about 7 yards, and then makes the second safety miss there inside the 10. It was just a tremendous individual effort by Jesse. And then the screenplay is probably the other most critical play in the game to get us into field goal range there on the other 3rd and long. That stuff is easy to see. What not a lot of people see is what he does for us on special teams. He's just got a great energy about himself, and I'm happy for Jesse. As much as we talk about all the other ACL guys coming off injuries, I'm happy for Jesse because of where he was a year ago on our roster as the go-to guy, what Bishop's done, and then him to have that opportunity and to perform the way he did was pretty cool.
With that in mind, and then also take into account what happened with Dwayne, how does that really put the running back mix going?
Well, it's great competition. Dwayne Washington's going to be fine. I can remember sitting in front of you guys after a Nebraska game a few years ago when Bishop dropped a kickoff and put the ball on the 1 yard line, and the sky wasn't falling on Bishop either then. He was going to be fine. And we have a lot of confidence in our young players. We continually try to build them up, and we'll continually build up Dwayne. He's going to be a good football player for us. And it was unfortunate. There were two very close bang-bang plays where I almost still think his knee was down on the first one, but hey, and the second one he really got bent back pretty well and bent back on his right knee, and I think he got a little bit scared, like probably we all would, and just kind of panicked and let go of the ball. So he'll be okay. I just felt like at that junction of the game, I didn't feel like it had been fair to him to put him back in there to carry the ball, and that's why Jesse got more of those carries, and Bishop got more of those carries, and that was probably 35 carries is not the number we want for Bishop Sankey every week. That's too many carries for him over the longevity of the season. So we'll continue to spread those things out, and hopefully we can continue to bring Deontay Cooper along as well.
Has Bishop become even more of a patient runner, and how much is that just learned through repetition game opportunities?
He's got a great feel. He really does. He works at it. I thought it was interesting, the one drive, we ran the same play, I think it was 7 times in a row out of the same formation, and the ball kind of hit in different spots every time, and I think that's a sign of a good runner, of understanding the run and the blocking schemes, and then being patient and then accelerating through the holes when they're there, and then he's got a unique feel for, he doesn't take very head-on type hits. He's kind of slippery and slides and ducks and gets under tacklers, and so he's a really good player, and I'm not surprised by what he's doing right now.
Do you find that maybe the way you see teams defense him, not only at the beginning of the games but how they adjust, do you feel like he still gets kind of underestimated?
I hope they do. I love it. I think he's a great player. I think that we've got a good scheme going right now where we can force the ball onto the perimeter with some of our speed guys that makes people deploy defenders to stretch all 53 1/3 yards of the field, and in turn can create some running lanes for Bishop up inside. So I think it all comes together, when you're getting the ball out to Jadon Mickens and John Ross and Kason Williams and Kevin Smith on the perimeter. And you have to deploy those people that way, that the running lanes can be such that when the offensive line does their job well enough and the tight ends do their job well enough, it can create some running lanes for a good runner to get through and get them one-on-one with safeties.
Steve, this game Saturday, I saw one report you guys are 53-point favorites versus Idaho State. How much better can you get in a game like this?
Well, I think a lot, quite honestly. I mean, there's things that, as we touched on earlier, we have to work on and we have to improve upon and get better at. I think the one thing about this game, as it is with every game, and I touched on it with the team a week ago, is it's about the process, and it's about embracing the process. It's not about who the opponent is on Saturday. It's not about where we're playing the game or what uniforms we're wearing or what the weather's supposed to be or what the surface of the field is. It's about the process of preparation and our ability to focus, to have great practices every single day, to compete with one another on a daily basis so that when Saturday rolls around, we're so prepared. We have such confidence and belief in what we're doing, and we know how hard the practices were that the opponent, not to say they're irrelevant, but they shouldn't be the external motivating factor of are we going to play well or not. So there's plenty of stuff that I want to see us go out and get better at, and there's other stuff that I want to see if we can continue to improve upon. And go out and play a good, clean football game. And that's what our focus is on, not so much who the opponent is or where the game is. We're pumped to be back at Husky Stadium, obviously, fired up to get back in front of our fans. We had a great showing in Chicago, and we're excited for another one here. But the process is more important to me right now than who the opponent's going to be.
At practice today that the guys are embracing that process?
They battled, man. It was funny. That was a pretty physical game Saturday, and so we had our normal scout period there at the beginning of practice, and then we go goods on goods for about 24 plays, and it was really competitive. And we always end practice with a 2-minute drill to see who wins today, if the offense can score, if the defense can hold them out. And today I went with the 2s and not the 1s at the end, and our 1s were pissed. They wanted to compete with one another and battle with one another. So that was a great sign for me that these guys, they love going to practice every day, and they love, Shaq loves trying to cover Austin, and Marcus and Kaysen battling one another, and Jamora and Ben Riva going at it, and Keith and Sean Parker doing their thing, and they love that competitive nature about themselves, and I love it about them as a team. So all signs were today was a good Monday practice for us. Tuesday, arguably the most important day of the week for us. We'll be telling. It's a real hard hat and lunch pail type day. And we got to go to work tomorrow morning. Yeah, he's got a bruise. He's got a bruise on his rotator cuff, oddly enough, and it was a deep one that almost caused his arm to he couldn't lift it. And so we're getting better. Yeah, his arm is improving. I would say he's day to day, quite honestly, of how the inflammation in the shoulder goes, but there's nothing structurally wrong in there, which is a great sign.
How would you evaluate Austin's first game back?
It was like a first game back. It was kind of what you'd expect out of a team in a first game. Some really good things in the running game, I thought, for Austin. A little bit of fatigue. He did play 80 snaps in the game, which is a lot at that tempo, so we'll have to monitor that a little better next time out. A little sloppy, had one false start where he got off just a millisecond before the snap, had a holding penalty that was a legitimate one, had another holding penalty that I really didn't agree with, but so it was kind of like everybody's first game, I think, and so he's expecting to play better Saturday. I think we're expecting him to play better Saturday, and when he does, we'll be better for it as a team.
2 games in a row now, you've come out, you've had great production yardage-wise. 2 games in a row now, you come out in the third quarter and really chop some wood. Is there anything in particular you can say about that? Or?
Well, I think it's a credit to our offensive staff when we get in at halftime of recognizing a couple things in formations that we really like and plays that we feel like are conducive in the game plan that we can lean on more. And then, in turn, the players are really aware of what those plays are, and our guys went out and executed them really well. We had 3 really good drives there right in a row there in the third quarter that were about as impressive as we've been. The Boise game too, we had the 4 straight drives, but those are really good drives, and the first half of these games, it's been interesting. We've had a lot of yards, and I've been trying to figure it out myself, but we've also had a lot of long fields. We've been starting on the 20, on the 5, on the 6, on the 10, and inevitably over time, those long drives, that just means you have to do more things right over and over and over and over and over. And we've stubbed our toe on a couple of those drives. So I think with the defense, we've got a real emphasis on we got to get after the football better than we have here in the first 2 games. And so our ability to create turnovers, to get field position, I think will only help the offense, I think, score more early rather than those long drives that we have to have. And we need to improve the return game as well. I think that can help in the process.
Steve, the penalties got cleaned up in the second half, right, Saturday?
Yeah, they were better. We weren't perfect. We weren't perfect by any means, and a couple of them were effort penalties, which we need to understand. We need to play smarter football. Danny Shelton, our nose tackle's running about 30 yards from the middle of the field to the sideline. The quarterback is still in bounds, stepping out of bounds, and he's leaving his feet from about 6 yards away and knocking him out of bounds. I mean, I praised him for his effort. We just have to be a little bit smarter, Jadon Mickens, there's a ball carrier in play. DeAndre Campbell's making his moves, and Jadon comes and makes a block on a 250-pound linebacker that, again, right at the whistle. So we just got to play smarter, So some of that stuff I think we can improve upon, but I love the effort that our guys played with. We just got to make a little better decisions.
Address that with the players. I mean, besides talking to them, yelling at them, I mean, you make them run stairs.
I just think explaining to them the situation, when there's a quarterback near the sidelines, the old adage, the tie goes to the runner. The tie is going to go to the quarterback. If he's near the sidelines and we have to know who the quarterback is and you hit him near the sidelines, 9 times out of 10, they're going to throw the flag. They would if it was Keith Price as well, So we have to be aware of that stuff. Anytime, Josh Shirley, anytime you go near a quarterback's head, they're going to call that stuff. And that's just the day and age of football right now. Whether it's the NFL, college, they're taking care of quarterbacks more than they ever have. So we have to be smarter in how we address tackling the quarterback as well as when we're rushing the passer, where our hands are when we get near the quarterback.
When Josh Shirley got here, he was pretty uncomfortable coming off his prior circumstances, it seemed, in his initial camp. How have you seen him change since then, and how would you explain his comfort level now?
Well, I like his maturity. Josh, like a lot of our team, is growing up. I think, this hasn't been easy for Josh. I think he thought he'd just be the starting defensive end and play every down. And now he's got a role where he's a pass rusher and some other guys are rotating in with him. But I thought he came into the game Saturday with a really good mindset that he was going to, when he got his chances, affect the quarterback. And he did, 3 sacks and pressured him a couple other times. That's a heck of a game for a guy understanding his role and then going out and executing it really well.
When did you guys figure out that was going to be his role? I think you also thought that he'd be an every down player and then kind of morphed into this.
Well, we've got depth at that spot. Obviously with Howley coming back has been helpful. Corey Littleton's been a really pleasant surprise for us. So when you have that competition, it keeps guys fresh. They have a role. They know what their responsibilities are. You saw even in the game Saturday, Travis Feeney playing some defensive end rushing the passer as well. So we've got depth there. And in our conference, the amount of people going no huddle with the amount of people throwing the ball that many times, you need to rotate people in there, and we have that luxury right now.
Talk about the small versus the big defensive line that was switching.
It was just really predicated off of the personnel groupings that Illinois was putting on the field. When they were going to 4 and 5 wide receiver sets, we were playing with smaller D linemen. They only had so many runs they could run. When they went to their 2-back, 2 tight end sets, we would go with our bigger guys, and that was effective as well.
Steve, how much do you think that the no huddle, everyone thinks it's a passing set, but how much do you think it's benefited the run game?
I think it's been huge. We're a run-first team. I know people always want to try to label me as a guy all he wants to do is throw the ball. I mean, we've been throwing our running numbers last year, and then even into this year, we run the ball, I think about 60% or so of the time, which is about where we want to be. Our run game does a nice job of setting up some of our play action pass stuff. We saw it again last week with the 2 deep balls, one to Kevin Williams, one to Kaysen, and along with some of the things on the perimeter with Jadon. So that'll continue to be that way. But I think it's helped us. I think it's helped our offensive line, and from a confidence standpoint of coming off the football, I think it's helped in some of the fatigue it puts in defensive linemen, and our guys firing off and doing things the right way.
Can you add any more information to what happened with Northwestern, and how's that going to color what you have to do going on the road going forward?
I don't know. It's an unfortunate situation. I don't think there's a whole lot of love lost right now between the Big Ten and the Pac-12, quite honestly, especially after the Arizona State-Wisconsin game. So it is what it is. Pat Fitzgerald and I exchanged some comments, and we're fine. I don't know where it's going to go from a conference level. So it was unfortunate. At the end, for me, I think it was really a positive. It just kept lending to there's no distractions for us on this team. And if we have to walk through the streets of Chicago to a park in downtown Chicago with a light pole in the middle of the field and practice, we'll do it. And our guys didn't skip a beat. A week ago, the lights went out in our indoor facility, and we kept going in special teams and running kickoff. And so it actually worked out really well for us. It's not a big deal for us anymore. We've moved on.
Have you ever been in a situation, whether as an assistant or head coach, where you feel like you have to kind of have the conference have your back and maybe pick up the slack and something like that and try to figure out a solution?
That kind of stuff, I try not to concern myself too much with, quite honestly. When we found out about it, we went to find a solution, instead of worrying about the problem. Like we talked to the team so much about, life's full of adversity, and if you get stuck worrying about the problem, then you'll never find a solution. And so it's not always about what happened to you, it's about what you're going to do about it. And so we didn't dwell in the situation too much, in the fact of, well, that's wrong, what are we going to do? I'm going to call Larry Scott. It was more about, okay, well, where are we going to practice now? And let's go practice and make sure it's a great one.
The balance in the passing game. You made a point that you wanted to get that back to where it used to be. But did you expect to be able to do this much this early without forcing the ball to Kaysen and Austin?
It's been great, Jerry. I've been pleased with it. Kevin Smith. I don't know if he can play better than he's playing right now. He's just been fantastic opposite Kaysen. Obviously, what Jadon's brought to the table, what John Ross has brought to the table, I think we'll get more out of him. We've seen flashes of Kaysen Williams when he gets his one-on-one matchups, and he had, I think, 4 catches the other night with the one deep ball. He also drew a pass interference for a big first down their sideline. So we're just getting glimpses of that, and I think, like I said, I think Austin's only going to improve here next week, and I really believe that Damari Stringfellow is going to overtime. It's taken him a little longer than maybe he would have liked, and maybe we would have liked, but I think he's got a chance to contribute as well. And then you throw in how many times Keith is utilizing his checkdowns and getting the ball to the running backs right now, and utilizing Bishop and Jesse last ball game. It's just it makes us a lot more difficult to defend when the ball's getting spread around. And then when our big guns get their isolated one-on-one matchups, they're a tough matchup, and Keith knows it, and he gives them their chances.
How much better is it going to make those two when they're not going to be the total focus of the defense?
It'll make them so much better. And to their credit, they get it. They understand it. Sometimes that's hard, especially for a guy in college to understand. The better everyone else does around him, the better off I'll be in the long run. Because there was a lot of pressure on those guys last year to make plays into double coverage, into coverage getting rolled their way, and now people are forced to defend everybody, and in turn, they're gonna have some real opportunities to make some big time plays for us. We're just 2 games into this thing, and we got a long way to go.
About the league, Steve, you got 5 in the top 25, you got 3 in your own division that are in the top 17. Have you taken stock on where the league is with regard to the rest of the country?
Yeah, I have. I've reflected on that here yesterday. I've been in this league now, I think it's 13 years, and I've never seen it this deep. I've never seen it this competitive, where week in and week out, when you go play, if you're not ready to play home or away, you're going to get beat. And there's really good coaches, there are really good players, there are tough environments to go play in. I think the conference in general, that the universities have made a real financial commitment to hiring good coaches. They've made financial commitments to building football facilities that matter in recruiting. And in turn, it's tough. It's as tough as I've seen it, and that's just where we are today, you know. And I think there's a couple other teams knocking on the top 25 door as well. So it's great to see. It's fun. It's competitive, and you know, see how this thing all plays out.
You and the coaches have been going back to New York preseasons the last couple times in the East Coast. What do you think the national perception is now in the Pac-12 compared to even 2 or 3 years ago?
I don't know. You know, I don't think we're there yet, quite honestly, to getting all of the respect the conference deserves. But I think that we're improving because, you know, we don't, you know, 1 or 2 of the coaches in the conference get to vote. So other people around the country are the ones that are voting for Oregon and Stanford in the top 5, and UCLA ourselves and Arizona State in the top 25, and getting other schools other votes. And so not all those votes are coming from the West Coast. So people are, I think, probably taking a little bit more notice and paying attention. I think it's a good thing that not all of our kickoff times are at 7:30 at night, that our games are getting spread throughout the day, starting at noon and working their way throughout the day, so that people are having an opportunity to see our teams play. And on national stages, you know, whether it's those ESPN games or the Fox games, and then the Pac-12 network games. So all in all, I think there's just more exposure for us. But I also think people are recognizing more that this is a talented conference, and sure is a talented North Division. That's for sure.
Between you guys and the Seahawks, there's a lot of buzz right now in the city for football. You saw the crowd Friday, the crowd game Saturday. Are you guys sensing that buzz kind of building for the program right now?
That's awesome. I think it's great, man. I'm fired up for the Hawks. I'm fired up for Pete. You know, I watched that game last night, and what an electric atmosphere they had at CenturyLink last night for that ball game. And yeah, I think back to our Boise game, the first game back in Husky Stadium, and that atmosphere. You know, there are tremendous football fans in this town, and I'm glad that they're seeing good football played by both teams. And there's a great relationship between the Seahawks and ourselves, and what's not just the coaches, but amongst the players. We've talked about Russell and Keith's relationship, and Marshawn has 2 cousins on our team, and DeAndre Campbell and Marcus Peters, and so he's around. And it's just obviously, in Jermaine playing for the Seahawks. So there's some unique connections there that tie the 2 programs together, and in turn, I think we both pull really hard for one another, and I think it makes it easy for the fans to support both teams and be proud of both teams in our city right now, and they're both playing good football.
If you extend that into broadly into recruiting, and now we're talking more about the West Coast and how the program's perceived, what subtleties do you see today versus 2 and 3 years ago when you talk to kids? Do you notice it? Do you feel it?
Well, you know, I think that one of the bigger differences for us in recruiting today, as opposed to 2 and 3 years ago, when kids come on our campus and they're getting hosted by Keith Price or Josh Shirley or Bishop Sankey or Kason Williams or Shaq Thompson or any of these other guys, these are guys that we recruited 2 and 3 years ago. And so I think the messaging isn't always just coming from us as coaches. They're really feeling it from the team. And when you're a 17, 18-year-old kid and you look up to those types of guys, and they're down to earth, and they can talk about the program and the coaches and the day-to-day life here at the University of Washington and in our community, the support of the community for the football program, the relationship with the Seahawks, sometimes that goes a lot further with those kids than maybe if it's just coming from me. So that's the biggest difference today than 2 or 3 years ago in recruiting.
Sorry, any early thoughts from what you've seen on film from the Bengals?
They're going to throw the ball. They throw it a lot. They go fast. They're fast like us as far as tempo-wise. They probably throw the ball a lot more than we do. They throw it about 75% of the time. They've got an aggressive blitzing-style defense, and they're 2-0. And so they're coming in here with a lot of confidence, and they watched McNeese State win and Townsend State win and North Dakota State win and Eastern Washington win. And so they've seen all those teams win, and they'll be fired up to come to Husky Stadium and try to knock us off.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.